So I spent over 4 years playing Dead Cells, honestly to the point where it turned into a problem. And looking back at all that time that passed, I realized that some of the beginner tips that I found in my early days weren't exactly beginner friendly. So I'll be rating some of these tips on a scale of 1 to 5 for how beginner friendly they actually are. Some common advice? Terrible. Some lesser known advice? Game changing. Let's see what works in 2025. Now, a question most people starting out ask themselves is rolling better than parrying? Well, rolling is easier at first. Pretty much most attacks can be dodged in the game aside from elite enemies and AoE attacks. But it's not perfect. Dodging doesn't make you invincible, and it has a cooldown of 0.37 seconds, which doesn't seem like a lot at first, but one mistimed roll and your entire run could be over. It can also be confusing when you roll while there's a lot of enemies on screen, so you're almost guaranteed to get hit by one of them if you're not careful. Parrying, on the other hand, is harder to learn. You can't move while parrying, so you're basically stuck in one place. It also has a cooldown, so if you miss it, you're basically fair game. But the difference is if you land it, the cooldown is reset, meaning you can chain as many parries as you want as long as you land them. Chaining parries also applies to bosses too, so you could potentially take no damage at all during boss fights. There's also mutations that make parrying easier, like the Armadillo Pack mutation that lets you parry while you roll with a shield in your backpack, getting the best of both worlds. Shields also have a lot of variety, like there being offensive shields as well as defensive ones. I'll give this one a 3. Rolling may be good up front, but parrying has way more potential if you're willing to learn it. Now that you know your options when it comes to defense, let's talk about how not to play, because new players tend to make this mistake and basically doom their own runs. Now there's special doors in this game called challenge doors, and the least recommended ones are the time doors. These doors open if a biome is escaped within a certain time frame. The general consensus online is that the time doors aren't really worth the effort, but why exactly? It can be pretty tempting at first. Not only do you get gold and some blueprints from them, you might also be encouraged to run from a difficult biome. The thing is, this isn't really good for new players in the long run. They might start to prioritize escaping a biome quickly instead of getting cells or making a good build or actually getting better at the game. What makes this worse is you only get a blueprint once per run, and there's only 4 blueprints you can get from time doors in total. There's nothing special about them after that. But if you take your time instead, you can get more cells for upgrades and outfits by killing enemies and gold to buy better gear down the line. You also won't have the pressure of playing against the clock, so you can learn and get better at playing like you're supposed to. And that's why the kill streak doors are a much better option overall. They give you stronger gear without having to buy them, meaning you can save gold, and there's more of them than time doors, so you'll have a bigger incentive to play better and not faster. Now this isn't to knock the idea of speedrunning entirely. Ironically, slowing down and aiming for the kill streak doors trains you on making speedrunning much easier. I'll give this a 4. Beginners should slow down and learn, but once you're comfortable enough, you can go as fast as you want. I mean, speedrunners exist for a reason, right? But the new problem with taking your time is, now you have all the time in the world to kill enemies, but no actual strategy on how to do it. Literally, the most common tip you hear online is stick to one color for your entire run. But why? The stats or colors in question come in 3: brutality, tactics, and survival. You can pick whichever one you want to upgrade while you're on a run. Now before I say why you should stick to one stat, let me explain what each stat actually does. Brutality is the stat that focuses on melee damage above all else. Weapons that have this stat type are often quick, crowd control weapons that have DPS specific attributes like hitting critical damage if an enemy is against the wall. Tactics is tied to damage too, but the difference being for range damage overall. This works great for ranged weapons like the heavy crossbow or the war javelin, and especially well with traps. Finally, survival, or the color green, is all about defense. Weapons and skills with this tab type work best in keeping you alive more than anything else. And with the right combo of weapons and skills, like shields that freeze when you parry or an armor of ice that takes damage for you, you could ironically be lethal while being hard as nails to kill. So, 3 ways to play, but the problem new players run into is choosing whether or not to commit to just one. It might be even more tempting when you realize splitting them up needs a pretty large health increase. But if you were to split points between stats, even though both health and damage scale with your choice, the amount of health you get each time decreases a lot, while the damage stays consistent. So spreading out points means more HP but way less damage, which isn't something you want in a game like Dead Cells. Focus on one stat and you won't even need the extra health. I give this one a 5. Dead Cells is a game that rewards the best defense is a good offense mentality. And if you still feel like you need some health boosts, you can make a survival build and use some health-based rotations. Okay, you got your ideas for defense, offense, and the pacing of your runs down, which is going to leave you with a lot more gold than you know what to do with. Another tip in the community is to hold on to your gold until much later. The fact that the weapons you can get early on are often much weaker than the ones down the line makes this solid advice. Also, the price the merchants sell at doesn't scale, no matter what point of the run you need them. But most people don't talk about the times that you can spend early. You may have a build in mind, but the starting weapons you get throw a wrench in your plans. You could use custom mode to choose your starting gear, but then you don't get any achievements for the entire run, so what else can you do? Well, most players do one of two things. They either stick with what they have until much later, then buy better gear, making their build much later than they probably planned, or they swap for whatever weapons they can find around the biomes they're in, even though it's still not a part of their build. But you can make an exception for this. If the weapons you get and the ones you find aren't what you want for your build, this is the one time you can buy what you need if the merchant has it. Plus, if you follow tip 2, you should have enough gold to spare for some new gear. But that doesn't mean you should just buy any weapon, not if you want a smooth run at least. Another thing new players tend to do is judge a weapon based on its DPS numbers only and ignore the attributes underneath, or its affixes as they're called. What they don't know is that's where the real fun is. Some weapons have really useful affixes, like rooting an enemy in the ground with each hit, or healing you by 1% of your total HP with every strike. These can make fights so much easier, and depending on which ones you find, they can do it without touching your DPS at all. I'll give this 3.5. It's good practice to hoard your gold until much later so you don't waste it on bad gear, but if you have a chance to buy a really good weapon for your build, or a weapon with a god level affix like the ones I talked about before, do not let it go, because you will not see it again, I promise you. But let's be real, no matter how good your gear is, you're going to take hits, and when you do, there's a game mechanic for getting it back, though it's high risk, high reward. Now this next tip isn't really talked about that much, not even by the game itself. It's a mechanic that offers an alternative way of healing. Ever notice how when you get hit there's an orange bar where your HP used to be? Well, that's the rally mechanic. You can get most, if not all, of your HP back if you hit any enemy enough times before the bar disappears. You could say it's a real lifesaver. Now, this isn't to say it's flawless. Most new players don't even know it exists since the game barely explains it, and the ones that do often panic every time they get hit and die while trying to get their HP back. Not to mention, it's not really for everyone. You don't have to use it just because it's in the game. It works best for a certain type of build and playstyle, so it depends more on those than on personal preference. Knowing when to get some hits in for HP and knowing when to back off is crucial for staying alive longer. If you're in a situation where you know you're risking death just to get some of your health back, let it go. Sometimes it's just not worth it. Also, think about what kind of build you have. Brutality players won't have any issue considering their skills and weapons support aggressive play, but tactics or survival players will have a harder time pulling it off. Not saying it's impossible for them, just that they would have a harder time. You might be asking if this is even worth it considering there are much better healing options in the game. Well, it is if you're geared for it, but that doesn't mean you should force it. Consider your playstyle and build before you decide to commit to this one healing method. I'll give this a 2. It's a good mechanic, but definitely not something I would recommend to a new player. The health flasks are already a big enough safety net, And once you get the gastronomy mutation from the giant floating eyeball that's got acid tears, you can get a plus 65% increase in healing when you eat food. But what if you didn't want to simply win? What if you wanted an absolutely insane payoff, even though one mistake could cost you your entire run? Now this last one isn't something that a lot of guides talk about, but it is something that community agrees is a good way to get used to how the game feels. I'm talking of course about the cursed chests. You've definitely seen them before. They're the glowing chest with faces that really want you to open them, then curse you for actually doing it. You'll have to kill 10 enemies without being touched or it's game over when you take any damage. Now longtime players encourage this because it'll help you adapt and play better while also being doable. Kind of like playing without training wheels. And it gives gold and scrolls for stat upgrades. But curse isn't something new players are willing to experiment with. They either avoid cursed chests after they get cursed once or try to get rid of the curse as quickly as they can. What they don't know is they're leaving potential upgrades and experience on the table and blocking themselves out of a whole other way to play. Cursed builds are a fourth kind of build that usually isn't mentioned when talking about beginner tips because they're more on the advanced side. You can combine weapons and mutations that make being cursed not that bad, like the cursed sword that deals critical damage only but you die in one hit while you're holding it, or the damned vigor mutation that keeps you alive after taking a fatal hit until you kill an enemy. This is pretty veteran stuff though, can't use all these just starting out. I just wanted to talk about it just in case you decide you're not a beginner anymore and want a real challenge. But cursed chests are definitely worth trying once you're comfortable enough with the basics, or if your runs are just getting stale. Just like taking your time, it'll help you play better in the long run. I give this one a 2. You can get away with skipping cursed chests for your run as a starter, but they do help if you give them a shot. And that's about it from me. If you're following these tips, chances are you'll get to veteran status faster than I ever did. If this helped, hit the like and subscribe button because I've got more roguelike and Metroidvania content on the way. And tell me what your favorite build is. Do you like a more standard one-stat build, or are you catching curses like Pokemon? Thanks for watching and good luck on your runs. Peace.